So here's a story that shows you exactly how the system works, folks. The UK Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, one of the most powerful financial figures in Britain, has been caught red-handed breaking the very laws she publicly champions. And what makes this beautiful, in the most ironic way possible, is watching how the story changed as the evidence piled up. I spent years inside a major media organization, watched them bury stories like this when it suited the narrative, saw how they protected their favorites. I couldn't stomach it anymore. Now I'm on my own, I answer to nobody, and I'm bringing you the stories that matter, unfiltered. If you value this kind of independent reporting, hit that like button right now, subscribe to the channel, and if you really want to support what we're doing here, consider becoming a channel sponsor. It's viewers like you who make it possible for me to keep digging into these stories without some corporate overlord telling me what I can and cannot say. Now let's dive into this mess. Rachel Reeves, Britain's Chancellor, the person in charge of the nation's finances, has been illegally renting out her 4-bedroom family home in the upscale Dulwich area of South London for £3,200 a month. That's about $4,200 for you Americans. Nice chunk of change, right? Here's the problem. She never bothered getting the required selective license from Southwark Council. This isn't some obscure regulation buried in fine print. It's a £945 license that every private landlord in certain areas must obtain before renting property. The rules are crystal clear. She moved into the official Chancellor's residence at 11 Downing Street after Labour won the general election in July 2024, put her house on the rental market immediately, and started collecting rent checks by September. Since then, she's pocketed about £9,600 in rental income, all of it technically illegal. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is the part that should make your blood boil. When the story first broke, Reeves played the innocent card. She claimed she had no idea about the licensing requirement. She said she relied entirely on her property agency, Harvey and Wheeler, to handle everything properly. In a letter to the Prime Minister, she apologized for what she called an unintentional error and said as soon as she learned about it, she immediately applied for the license. Classic politician move, right? Oops, my bad, didn't know, fixed it now, let's move on. Except that's not what happened. Not even close. On Thursday, October 31st, emails surfaced between her husband, Nicholas Joyce, and the property agency. And these emails, folks, they tell a completely different story. The government was forced to release 2 email chains from July through August 2024, and they're absolutely damning. On July 17th, the agency explicitly told Joyce they would need to apply for a selective licensing scheme license through Southwark Council, crystal clear communication. 5 days later, on July 22nd, the agent wrote again, saying they could arrange the selective license after tenants moved in, and asked if he wanted them to handle it. Then on July 26th, Harvey and Wheeler informed them the license would cost £900, payable in 2 installments, first 6 £140, then the remaining £260 after processing. 3 separate communications. 3 times they were told exactly what was required, what it would cost, and how to do it. So this whole "I didn't know" defense, it's garbage. Complete fabrication. And the real kicker here, the thing that shows you exactly the kind of person we're dealing with, is that Reeves has been publicly championing these exact licensing rules in her own constituency. Just weeks before this scandal broke, she was on Facebook celebrating Leeds City Council's decision to expand their licensing scheme. She was talking about how important it is to protect tenants' rights and ensure standards in the private rental sector. The private renters union, Acorn, absolutely nailed it when they said it's absurd when people in high positions support these initiatives but then don't follow them themselves, intentionally or not. This is hypocrisy at its finest. Do as I say, not as I do. And it's not even subtle about it. Now let's talk about what she's facing, because the consequences could be severe. Under UK law, landlords who rent without proper licensing can face unlimited fines if prosecuted in court. That's unlimited. They can also hit you with administrative penalties up to £30,000 per violation. But here's the part that really stings. Tenants have the right to demand a rent repayment order for up to 12 months of rent. For Reeves, that could mean paying back around £38,000 to £40,000. That's real money, even for a chancellor. And Southwark Council doesn't mess around with these violations. Last year alone, They issued fines totaling £2.5 million for non-compliance with selective licensing rules. They prosecuted a landlord named Rashidat Adebukola Edekunye Mohammed with an £1,128 fine and hit an agency, Tunde Coker from Alpha Property Services, with £2,256 for similar violations. So there's precedent here. The council enforces these rules. The question is, will they enforce them equally when the violator is the Chancellor of the Exchequer? Because that's what this really comes down to, two-tier justice. If you're a regular landlord in Southwark and you skip the licensing requirement, you're getting fined, you're getting dragged through the system, you're paying penalties. But if you're Rachel Reeves, one of the most powerful people in British government, do the same rules apply? We're about to find out. And I've got to tell you, I'm not holding my breath for equal treatment here. The property agency, Harvey and Wheeler, eventually apologized to Reeves, blaming the whole thing on an employee who left the company and supposedly was supposed to file the license application but never did. Classic corporate excuse. Blame the person who isn't there anymore to defend themselves. But here's what legal experts are pointing out. And this is crucial. The legal responsibility doesn't fall on the agency. It falls on the landlord. Always. Sean Hooker, head of redress at Property Redress, said it's interesting to see the Chancellor trying to blame the agent, because that doesn't work in tribunals for rent repayment orders. Compliance is the duty of the principal landlord, not the agent. Translation? She can't wiggle out of this by pointing fingers at the property company. She's the landlord. She's responsible. End of story. But of course, she's going to try. They always do. And if you've got enough power, enough connections, sometimes you can make problems disappear. That's exactly what we're watching play out right now. The Conservative opposition is demanding a full investigation and calling for her resignation. Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, posted on Twitter that the Prime Minister should launch a complete investigation. She quoted Prime Minister Keir Starmer's own words back at him: "Lawmakers cannot be lawbreakers. If the Chancellor broke the law, he needs to show he has the character to act." Strong words. Let's see if Starmer has the spine to follow through. Initially, Starmer tried to shut this down, saying no investigation was needed. Just move along, nothing to see here. But when those emails surfaced showing Reeves's husband was informed multiple times about the licensing requirement, Downing Street had to change course. A government spokesperson admitted that after reviewing the emails sent to and received by the Chancellor's husband, new information had emerged. That information was passed to the Prime Minister and his independent advisor. In other words, they can't ignore this anymore. And here's the thing, this isn't the first scandal like this in the Labour government. Political editor David Maddox from The Independent pointed out this is the third similar situation. Former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner got caught up in a stamp duty avoidance scheme. Louise Hay made a false police report about a stolen phone. Both eventually resigned. So there's a pattern here. And patterns tell you something about the culture, about the standards, or lack thereof. If you're finding value in this deep dive, do me a favor. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment letting me know what you think. Should Reeves resign? Is this a genuine mistake or deliberate deception? I want to hear from you. Now, the timing of this scandal could not be worse for Reeves and the Labour government. She's supposed to present the autumn budget on November 26th, 2025. That's just weeks away. And everyone expects harsh tax measures, unpopular decisions, spending cuts, all the stuff that makes voters angry. Her personal credibility is absolutely critical to pulling this off. If people don't trust her, if they see her as a hypocrite who breaks the rules she imposes on others, good luck getting public support for painful budget measures. Downing Street keeps insisting that Starmer has full confidence in Reeves and that she'll deliver the budget as scheduled. But full confidence is political speak for we're trapped and can't get rid of her right now. As more details come out, as the pressure builds, that confidence could evaporate pretty quickly. We've seen it happen before. Remember, just a few months ago, these same people were expressing full confidence in Rayner and Hay right up until they weren't. This scandal also exposes some deeper systemic problems with how rental property licensing works in the UK. Different councils have different requirements. There's no standardized system. It creates confusion for landlords. The National Residential Landlords Association points out there's no clear connection between councils having licensing schemes and actually improving enforcement against fraudulent or criminal landlords. In other words, these licensing systems might not even work as intended. Timothy Douglas from Property Mark argues that licensing schemes are ineffective at improving housing quality in the private rental sector because most schemes fail due to insufficient resources for necessary enforcement activity. On top of that, they often cost more to run than they generate in fee revenue. revenue. So you've got a system that's confusing, possibly ineffective, expensive to administer, and now we find out even the Chancellor of the Exchequer can't figure it out or won't bother complying. That tells you something. But let's be clear about what this really represents. This isn't about the complexity of licensing rules. This is about a politician who publicly supports strict regulations for everyone else while quietly ignoring them herself. This is about someone who campaigned on protecting tenants and holding landlords accountable while simultaneously being an unlicensed landlord. This is about power and privilege and the assumption that the rules don't apply when you're important enough. And the evolution of her story, that's what really gets me. First it was I didn't know, then it was I relied on my agency, then the email showed her husband was informed multiple times. Each time evidence surfaced, the story shifted. That's not someone who made an honest mistake. That's someone in damage control mode adjusting the narrative as they realize they can't hide anymore. And we're supposed to just accept that? We're supposed to believe this was all innocent confusion? She's been collecting £3,200 a month since September. That's about $4,600 in rental income per month from a property she's not legally allowed to rent. Meanwhile, she's going to stand up in Parliament and tell working-class Brits they need to tighten their belts, pay more taxes, accept less public services. The audacity is breathtaking, and this is why people are so cynical about politics, because they see this kind of thing over and over. Different faces, same story. Rules for thee, but not for me. Labour councillor Natasha Ennin from Southwark, commenting on a similar case last year, said the case demonstrates their commitment to holding landlords and agencies accountable when they don't fulfil their legal obligations. Beautiful statement. Let's see if that commitment extends to holding their own Chancellor accountable. My guess, they'll find a way to make this go away quietly, maybe a small fine that means nothing to someone pulling in nearly £40,000 a year in rental income, maybe a slap on the wrist. Maybe nothing at all, because that's how it works at that level. You protect your own, you circle the wagons, you weather the storm until the news cycle moves on and people forget. And most of the time, it works. Most of the time, they get away with it. But every once in a while, the evidence is too clear, the hypocrisy too blatant, the public anger too strong. Maybe this is one of those times, or maybe not. We'll see. The financial hit could be substantial. If tenants demand a rent repayment order, she could be looking at returning nearly £40,000. Add potential fines of up to £30,000, and you're talking about £70,000 in consequences. That's around $90,000. Not pocket change, even for someone in her position. But the political damage might be even worse. Her credibility is shot. Her judgment is questionable, her integrity is compromised, and she's supposed to be the person guiding Britain's economic policy through difficult times. Think about that for a second. This is the person making decisions about your taxes, your benefits, your economic future, and she can't even follow basic landlord licensing rules that she publicly champions. What does that tell you about her competence? What does that tell you about her priorities? What does that tell you about whether she actually believes in the rules she wants to impose on everyone else? So let me bring this all together for you. Rachel Reeves, UK Chancellor, illegally rented her property without required licensing, despite multiple warnings to her husband. She initially claimed ignorance, but emails proved she knew. She publicly supported these exact rules while privately ignoring them. She faces potential fines up to £30,000 and possible rent repayment orders of £40,000. The scandal comes right before a critical budget presentation where she needs public trust. Opposition demands investigation and resignation. Prime Minister initially defended her, but new evidence forced reconsideration. This is the third similar scandal in the current Labour government. And here's my bottom line. This isn't just about one politician breaking one rule. This is about a pattern of behavior where people in power believe they're above the systems they create for everyone else. It's about the double standards, the shifting explanations, the corporate speak apologies that mean nothing. It's about whether we're going to hold these people accountable or let them skate by with a sorry and a promise to do better next time. If this kind of reporting matters to you, if you want to see more investigations into how power really works, I need your help. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and seriously consider becoming a sponsor. These stories take time, they take resources, and they don't make me popular with the people in power, but that's exactly why they need to be told. Your support makes that possible. Drop a comment, let me know what you think should happen to Reeves, and share this with someone who needs to see it. The more people who know these stories, the harder it becomes for politicians to sweep them under the rug. Stay informed, stay skeptical, and I'll see you in the next one.